Hello, Ryan. You are up next.
Hey Bart, can you hear me okay?
I can. How's it going?
Perfect, good, good. All right, so this was just played the other night. It's 2-3, it's a 200 to 1,000, but after the first hour, it's 100% match the stack.
2-3, so 1,000 max, match a stack. Where is this played out of?
Out of Hollywood Casino in St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, interesting. I have not played there, but I have been to St. Louis. Okay, and how deep are you?
This hand is 1,900 effective, and I cover the villain.
Any straddles or anything going on, or?
Rarely. I mean, the table has been pretty splashy. There's this whale that's lost about, I would say, 5K in the last like 4 hours.
Okay.
All right, so guy in middle position makes it 15. Next to act with the middle-aged Asian guy, he calls. I'm on the button with 8-7 hearts, and I make it 75. I could definitely just flat here sometimes, but like the last hour, I was card dead, so I just thought I would put in the 3-bet.
So MP to 15, I'm going to say hijack calls, hero with 7-8 of hearts on the button to 75, and both these guys have decent stack sizes.
Yeah, like 12 and 1,900.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's fine. Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. So you 3-bet to 75.
And then they both call.
Both call. So
Yeah.
MP and hijack call. So this is what I was talking about, actually, Ryan. I think you were the one that was going to talk about Ace King X texture, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I'll talk about that as we get into this, but Ryan's going to bring up something that I've talked about on CLP, but you might be possibly confusing 3-bet pots with single raise pots. So we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so what's the flop here?
So the flop's 225. It comes the ace of diamonds, the king of hearts, and then the six of clubs.
Ace of diamonds, king of hearts, six of clubs. So it's a pretty good board for the 3-better, for sure, right? You know, you've got a flat caller in there. Now, for the most part, you don't always know this, but if it's an MP open, the chances, I don't even know if you know any of these guys, but I think we can all agree that hijack's going to be 3-betting ace king a lot. Sometimes you'll see people flat, but a lot of the times, you know, he's going to, and aces and kings, right? That's what we're going to throw that out. Now you obviously flop, you know, you actually have 3 to a straight flush, and obviously the board is very, very good for you. So, I mean, I think that this is absolutely going to be a C bet here in your spot. And then we'll talk about what Ryan was talking about, as I get ahead of myself a little bit, is like, I feel like in single raise pots, you can sometimes go to the absolute town on these boards, because if you raise and somebody's almost always 3-betting ace king, they're never going to have it, and they're never going to have aces and kings. So the best hands that they can have here are a set of sixes or an ace six. And usually you'll find out in a single raise pot by the turn, if somebody were to have that. This is slightly different because the MP might have some ace king, but he also could have some ace queen, where I say, well, a lot more than like in a single raise spot where sometimes there will be a frequency of 3-betting ace queen off. It's still the same concept. It's just not quite as extreme as a single raise pot. Although you have a lot more strong hands by the fact that you 3-bet pre, as opposed to you just opening and then it went flat, and people were like, well, he just opened. You could open, you know, with anything, right?
Of course, yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay. So I assume it gets checked to you?
Yeah, so checks to me, I bet 75. The first guy who opened a 15 folds, then the double flatter calls.
So hero bets 75 into 225. Then it goes MP folds, right?
Yep, and then the double flatter calls.
All right. So the hijack calls. So now you're in a situation here where, well, we can probably look at this like we were talking about before, because like the hijack's almost, he's not going to have aces, kings, or ace king here, right? He's just not. It's just
Never.
usually.
I mean, never. I mean, he probably raises like, he definitely raises all queens, jacks, and tens, I would think, from the original open too.
Yeah, and then also too, like if somebody flats ace king, like there's going to be a frequency of him back raising pre-flop here as well. Now, as far as your sizing goes here on the flop, I mean, it is multi-way, obviously. I don't have an issue with that type of sizing here. You just have to understand that you're in a, you know, put the hammer down on later streets, and you're really going for a triple barrel. And it's interesting, if you get one caller, which you have, if you get a turn card that's disconnected, but you don't pick up equity, like a black deuce or something like that, if you still go for it. But there's a lot of cards where you can pick up equity here too. So
Correct, yeah.
all right. So 375.
And then it's the Queen of Hearts.
Queen of Hearts. So you pick up a heart draw now.
Correct.
But what's interesting about this, though, too, I think this is a much better card for you than if, like, Hijack had called. Excuse me, than if the original opener had called MP.
Correct, I agree.
I mean, Hijack can have some Ace Queen, but this card doesn't really scare me all that much. Now, could he have some Jack 10 or something like that? Maybe some King Queen? Sure, because of the fact that he obviously he was closing the action. But I don't think any of those hands are going to raise. If he has Ace Queen, if he has King Queen, none of those hands are going to raise. So, if you bet here again and he calls, there is more combinations of Ace X suited here that, he could have Ace Jack, Ace 10, something like that. I assume he checks to you again.
Yeah, he does check, and I think he probably, three bets. At least what I've seen from him in like the last hour and a half. I think he three bets love Ace Queen from the original opener too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
So it checks to me, and then like I pick up hearts. I chose a rather large sizing actually.
Okay.
I bet almost pot. I bet 350.
I have no issue with that. The only thing that I'll say is that another kind of live-ish type of hack here. You would think, in theory, here, when you take this type of sizing as a three better, I mean, it's hard to sort of sim a configuration like this because there shouldn't be really double flats here all that much. Although maybe once in a while at this stack depth, there might be. You just won't see live players fold out Ace X right now, as they might. There probably is some Ace X that they should be folding, though. I mean, there's definitely some Ace X that he should be folding, like, Ace 4 of spades, or, you know what I mean? So it's something that, but I tend to not see that as much. And then if he calls here, you're in a little bit of a guessing game, as to if he has, again, like Ace X, or if he's got like King Queen or Ace Queen, and if he'll come off that. Obviously, Ace X of Hearts is also still available. If he does just call, I would tend to discount that he ever really had Jack 10 here. I think that puts some money in. And then the other thing that might be working against you is that he might fall into a check call shell here, maybe one with like 6-6, just because of the way that the board is. So he might actually have some stronger hands than you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward, but we'll see what you have to say. So I bet 350 and he calls. So then we head to the river, which is 1,075.
And you have about what?
It's just over 1,400.
Okay, so good stacked up. Yep.
Yeah. So it comes in offsuit 5.
So like 5 of spades.
Yeah, it was 5 of spades or 5 of clubs.
And he checks to you?
He does check.
I would go for it for sure. I would go for it. I would go for it for sure.
You would stick everything in?
Well, no. Well, let's talk about sizing here.
Okay.
I mean, I would definitely. You have to trip. I mean, you end up with absolutely nothing here. You've structured correctly. You have the super range advantage. We already think that he's going to check raise some strong hands like Jack 10, set of sixes, stuff like that. We know if you're right about him having preflop, he doesn't have Ace Queen. He doesn't have Ace King. So, you're kind of left with, and then, once in a while, I don't know if he's three betting, you don't necessarily know if he's three betting Ace 5 suited off, but a lot of guys put that in there too. And if they were to three bet Ace 5, then he doesn't have that either. So now you get into this little quandary of like, well, how should I size here? Right? Because if I size huge, does that sometimes counterintuitively get more calls than I thought it should? The theory says the more you size, right, the less he has to defend. That doesn't always occur, though, in live poker, because people will be like, well, why would this guy be betting so much with pocket kings or pocket aces? I'm going to call, and you might actually get more of a fold button with a smaller bet. So I don't know if you have to go 1,400 here. I might go... actually,
8 something maybe?
No, I was kind of thinking close to pot, but I could get on board because you only have 1,400 here. It's just like one of these things where when you've got an opponent with a collapsed range, like what would you do here with like Ace King or like a set of kings here or something like that? Obviously, set of kings being better than Ace King because it gives your opponent more of a chance to have an ace.
I still probably stick it in, to be honest.
You would stick it in with Ace King here?
Maybe not kings for sure.
Kings because of you unblock Ace X.
Yeah. I mean, with Ace King, maybe like go like 8 something, but like if he jams on me, I still just kind of have to side call at that point. So I'll be getting such good odds.
I tend to want to go pot here. I think it gets the same job done. So probably kind of I agree with Nate here. Maybe like 1,000, maybe 1,100. It's something subtle. I don't think it would be bad to just blast all in. It's just really interesting to know what the response is of like 1,400, 1,475 all in versus like betting 1,000. If that changes anything. If it doesn't change anything, then the smaller sizing is actually correct. In theory, it should, right?
Yeah. So I did stick it in.
So for like 1,475?
It was like 1403 or something. It was what it was. Yeah.
I mean, that's a really hard call to make with king queen here. I honestly, I mean, the only thing I would say if he has king queen or any ace x, right? But the only thing I would say about king queen here is that if I had king queen and I was thinking about calling, the things that I would think about is that I block ace king, I block ace queen, I block kings, and I block queens. And I think we can all agree that making a bet all in with top set of aces would not be the most efficient bet in your spot. Like if you had ace ace here, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because I would think he would have. If I have ace ace, his calling range is so like narrow at that point.
So you could make a case from the opponent's perspective where he might want to like bluff catch more often with king queen here. You know what I'm saying? Because of those reasons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what ended up happening here?
So I jam. I avoid the snap. So that's good. And after maybe about 60 to 75 seconds, someone calls the clock on him.
Okay.
And this is like, I mean, the biggest pot before this was probably like $1,600. And if he calls, the pot's going to be like, what, just shy of 4K.
Right.
So I kind of like, I just sat there and I'm like, why, like thinking to myself, like, why is a different person calling the clock after like 60 or 75 seconds? So the floor comes over and I said, maybe this is wrong. I said, hey, can you give him some time? It's only been like a minute and this is a huge pot.
Uh-huh.
So the floor started the clock about 30 seconds later. And then the villain called with maybe like 5 seconds left.
Okay.
So I was just trying to see what your thoughts were on, I guess, the dude calling the clock after 60 seconds and if I should have said anything.
Well,
because I don't want to like give up a tell, but also like, I don't know.
If it, right. In those two types of, first of all, what did the hijack have? And then I'll go into that.
He had ace 2 of hearts.
Oh, so he had the ace x of hearts and he didn't come off it. Wow.
And the worst part is it looked like he was so close to folding 2 a few times. So, I think just the time, like, I guess counting down, he just said, okay, F it.
So this is what I usually do. If I'm in your spot and somebody else called the clock, I try to say absolutely nothing. So I don't get into the type of head games that you're getting in with yourself. I don't even say anything. If it really was only a minute and it was the largest pot that you guys have had in quite some time, that's not really like a lot of time for this guy to think. But anybody can call the clock on somebody else. But I mean, I can't even imagine when I ever called the clock in a hand that I wasn't involved with. You have a right to do so, but it might have been like 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I just thought the guy was out of line. He's a reg too, which kind of makes it worse. Like he should kind of know, like, you know, he shouldn't call the clock after a minute in a 4K pot. But
I think that if you didn't say anything yourself, maybe you would be thinking a little bit like it could kind of be annoying, but the way that you counter that is just don't say anything. If somebody calls the clock, I'm talking about in the hand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
So I kind of said something to the guy. I'm like, hey, that was kind of like a dick move to call the clock. And actually the guy who called agreed with me as well and said the same thing to the guy, which I thought was kind of interesting.
88 miles an hour. Dr. Brown says, I bet 900 gets more folds. That's exactly what I was talking about. This is this sort of weird live paradox here where sometimes a larger bet gets called more often, even though the opponent is supposed to defend less, right? It's just weird. It just sometimes happens in live. So obviously he's supposed to continue on turn. I just wonder, like, if he had ace deuce of spades, does he call turn? And then now he gets wrapped up because he's in there, so he just decides to call river. But it's an interesting one.
I think ace 2 of spades almost has to fold the turn, right?
It should.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Bart.